Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Charmed. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we are in the aftermath of last episode where Maggie beat the ever-living piss out of that dude. And obviously having to go through, we see she gets arraigned, and now she basically has to go to court at the end of the week. And lo and behold, who does she call to pick her up? I was almost thinking like, oh, you're not calling someone to pick you up, you're just going to the bus stop or something. It's like, no, of course she'd get Kayla, because Kayla doesn't know her enough, and she doesn't want judgment from the people in her life. Because she didn't call Mel, she didn't call Harry, she didn't call Jordan. Considering where her and Jordan are right now, understandable. Sadly, it's probably going to be a little while. May not be until the next episode that he finds out that all that Maggie's been going through and what happened. And Harry just kind of decided to screw off at the wrong time. But part of me wonders, is that by design too, this whole thing with Roxy? Like, maybe that's not an accident. Maybe that flows into this Tallyman thing. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just happens to be, hey, he's trying to find his path forward, and this is just what it looks like. It's just kind of at the worst time, but maybe him, cutting away from all of this actually works in the long run. Well, to be fair, I forgot, the last time we saw him, he disappeared, so he's not even around. It's not like, I was thinking like, oh, is he spending time with Roxy? I'm like, no, forgot. Roxy gave him, he ate the thing and he disappeared last episode. I forgot about that. But Mel is kind of upset because it's like, right, Maggie she didn't even call me. She didn't tell me. I didn't know how much she was struggling. That's the sad thing is, after losing Macy, they fell apart. They're still a family, but they haven't been as family like that. The puzzle, the pieces that made up this family are falling apart because they're all dealing with things in their own regard. Obviously, Mel and the Ruby thing was kind of a rude awakening for her in that regard. And now you add in everything Maggie's going through, all the anger she's feeling, all the sadness she's feeling, and she's kind of lashing out the way she is. She needs an excuse to hit something. Not the best way to handle things, which ironic. I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to bring the real world into that, but that thing, that's interesting. Regardless, Mel wants to go on like vacation, like go a spa day, magical spa day. That way we kind of get away from everything. But she was also subtly trying to use it, not so subtly, use it as an excuse to get Maggie to open up about everything, which Maggie's super against it. And so Kayla gets left in control of everything for, a couple hours, and she's enjoying herself until powers go haywire, and that causes a whole lane of shenanigans to activate. So she decides to go get the conch fix, which involves her running into Dev again. Which the fact is that Harry made that conversation, that point about like, right, maybe the universe has a way of reuniting with the person that will help you. And lo and behold, she runs into Dev again, which I figured he would be the one to help her because they made such a point of that interaction. I figured, I thought maybe because his powers being what they are, that sweet spot between just singing and magic, I thought that would count as manifestation, but it seems like no, but he just happened to be the right person at the right time to teach her everything she needs. So that's actually pretty dope. But she was initially kind of reluctant because it's like, oh, the last time I met you, I was like, no, I don't want to get to know you. But he inadvertently ends up helping her. I mean, he was going to use his voice to initially fetch the conch, but it's like, wait, you're a manifestor? No, you can fix this yourself. And she's like, okay. And, slowly but surely, like, her powers never work when she needs them to. It's always when she doesn't want them to. And I like that Dev was able to get her to realize, like, how to activate her powers. And it was just like, right, you got to focus on, like, I think, magic comes with a lot of feelings. A lot of it is tied to your emotions, I think. So it's like, right, don't just focus. You're overthinking things. Like, you gotta feel a little bit too. It's that, I think that little moment between like clearing your mind and feeling what you're feeling. And she made a martini glass, and another, and another, and another. And it's so interesting. At first she couldn't stop, which I'm like, I guess at a bar, it's kind of a bad thing, because it's like, cool, the more you're popping those up, the more free drinks everyone else is getting. I even love Dev kind of messing with him for a little bit. He's like, that drink has way too much vermouth. So it's like, okay. And how do you stop it? You rip it up. Which I think that's so fascinating that it stops the manifestation, but it doesn't, like, because you would almost think by ripping it up, you destroy every version she manifests. But no, so that's an interesting way. I wonder, is that how you're supposed to do that? Or is that just like going to be how temporarily she does that? Like, right, I'm going to draw something, I'm going to make it, and then I'm going to rip it up. Or could it be a thing of she eventually learns how to stop it on her own without having to go through that trouble? I don't know. It also makes you wonder, like, with her manifestation abilities, if you piece those pieces back together, would it activate the manifestation? Like, how much stuff could she manifest at a time? Like, my mind's wondering about the possibilities of her, abilities. Like, if she drew, like, for example, if she draws bath bombs this episode, or she drew a bath bomb and a martini, like, would they both be, like, how much would be too much for her to be manifesting? Like, would that take a toll on her? Because it's one of those things where I'm thinking about it from, like, video game logic. Like, you're having multiple abilities activated at the same time. So, like, say, like, manifesting, like, using, like, video game logic of, like, oh, you've got MP. It's like, cool. Every time you're using, summoning one of these bombs, it's -5 MP. But then you add in the martini, that makes it another 5. So you're losing 10 MP every time. So eventually it would drain you. I mean, I'm sure just, like, your stamina would eventually run out. I don't know if that's ever really come up in the show, just like using your power too much and whether there's like a full-blown limitation or not. I don't think that's ever really come up, but it's probably thoughts I've just never really thought before about when it comes to like the magic in this universe. I don't think that's ever come up, but maybe it has. If there's anything close to, even if it's in the original show or whether it's in this show, do let me know. I'm sure I'm overthinking it, but that was just my way of being like, oh, that'd be interesting. It was, just like what would be the limitations of like how much she can manifest at a time before like it would take its toll on her. Huge tangent aside, but I love that they get kicked out of the place and they were holding hands at the time, so he transports back to the command center with her, and I love that because it definitely seemed he's like, hey, you've got a new friend. I was like, oh, it seemed like he was trying to get like not just a friendly situation. It seemed like he was trying to get close to you, and it seems like he's quite infatuated with Kayla. And then he finds out, wait, you're the new charmed one? He's like, holy crap. Because, for one, I love that these rumors are sprouting up. He's like, dude, there's been a whole bunch of rumors about you. One, that you're not even related to the Charmed Ones, and that's a whole thing. But also, there's a nasty rumor that she's a puppet, that they're just, I guess, manifesting and propping around just so they can have the Power 3 game, which is super jacked up to be like, oh, you're not even really a human, you're just a puppet. Like, I don't know how they interpret that as like, oh, like, they made a legitimate, like, she's the Pinocchio in this thing, they legitimately made a person, and it's like you're a puppet in that regard, or is it like, oh, you're a human being that we found to act as our anchor as a third, but in actuality, I'm curious how that, I mean, I guess either way. It's also interesting, and I think this plays into the original series as well, just like how nasty rumors about the Charmed Ones can spread, and I think that really nicely plays into the rest of the episode, but we'll get to that later. But he was just, and I love that he's like, yeah, I actually could have helped you fix the conch, like, with certain ingredients and stuff. She's like, you knew how to fix it the entire time? He's like, yeah, but for one, I didn't know how dire the situation was. Plus, I got to talking to you and got to know you, and you're actually pretty cool. It was just his way of kind of flirting, getting close to her, because she wasn't really going to give him the time of day otherwise. But then it's also like, oh, the more time we spent together, it's like, you're actually a lot of fun. I didn't know how dire the situation was. I didn't realize you were a charmed one. That the other Charmed Ones were in danger, but he's also like, yeah, he wanted to help out, but she's like, no, I got this from here. And he's like, yeah, you always know where to find me, so he ends up going back to the bar. That's fascinating. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, are we setting the groundwork for a relationship here? Or is it going to be a complicated thing of a will they, won't they type of thing? I'm curious to see what happens with that whole Kayla and Deb situation. So that's going to be interesting to keep our eyes on. But focusing on Mel and Maggie at the spa. Mel's trying to, get Maggie to open up about everything. But she doesn't want to, obviously. Because she's like, right, we made a deal that when we came here, you weren't going to pry. What are you doing? You're prying. But I think it's also from the place of Mel feeling like she's let you down. It's like, as her sister, like, it's, you guys literally, like, and that isn't to take away from the relationship with Macy, but it's like, we grew up together. We've always been pretty tight. And I was so oblivious to what you were going through. To be fair, you were going through it too. And that's the thing, when you're kind of going through it, it's not always the easiest to recognize when someone else is going through it. Like, you both knew what you were going through, but you weren't talking. You weren't being there for each other. Like, because you were both dealing with things in your own ways. Whether it was Mel, you know, it wasn't just the Macy thing. She was also dealing with the aftermath of the whole Ruby thing too. So, you know, the one night stands, the making out, the just hitting it and quitting it, but also Maggie like just needing an excuse to fight, kill demons, and beat people up. Well, not people, but demons. But now it's blended over into the real world, so that's going to be interesting to see what. I mean, because obviously she's going to be facing real world consequences. Kind of potentially at the worst time. Like I said, we'll get to that later. But you add in all of. It's also because Mel also wants to be in a position where, like, right, she can confide in her sister about everything she's going through. Like, right, I told you about the Ruby thing, and, you know, we need to kind of be there for each other. But for Maggie, it's like, I don't need another person trying to fix me. That's already an issue with Jordan. And Jordan is spending the entire time trying to fix me, and now you're trying to do the same thing. But it is fascinating that the moment he popped up, you're like, oh, you saw the name tag Robert. Poor Robert. New guy, too. Dying like that's pretty messed up. But the tally man ends up... Well, he's got, you know, eyes all over them, which very befitting because the thing he uses to keep an eye on them is a spider, and spiders having multiple eyes like that. But aside from that, the... Tallyman being so close to Maggie, and he didn't bother trying to kill her. He tried to, he plucked a hair from her, which you're like, that must be necessary for something later on. I'm like, what is that about? He could have, but it's like, right, did he not have the courage to, do it? But it seems like he also has his long play, his end game, as they talk about it later. That guy knows how to sow some chaos. Not only did he kill Robert, and I love that Arnold ended up covering up the crime. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that actor is, I looked it up, I think his last name's Mannix, if I believe that's the same actor, because like, I've seen him in so many things. I want to say he's in Community a lot. I've only seen bits and pieces of Community, but like the thing immediately that comes in the back of my mind, I'm like, what I kind of think of him from is, Phil of the Future, who was also in Phil of the Future, Ali Mashaka. Am I saying Ali's last name right? Yes, I believe so. Who, CW connection-wise, was on the iZombie. Just one of those things that I'm just kind of like, oh, just once again, just connections between stuff. But I believe, you've seen, like JB Mannix, if I'm saying his name right, last name right, you've seen him in so many things that I'm like, I think that was him if I'm not mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that's him. But I was like, hey, because he's just one of those actors, you've just seen him in so many things, so when you see him, you just immediately recognize him. I wasn't looking through the credits, so I didn't know if his name had popped up. But regardless, putting all that aside, I love that Mel found him dragging a body. He's like, this isn't what it looks like. She's like, what's in the bag? He's like, what bag? Oh, this bag? It's not what it looks like. Okay, it looks exactly what it looks like. He's like, basically, I wanted you to have a 5-star experience, especially because you're a charmed one. And I think this is a telling thing that he was immediately like, oh, please don't vanquish me. She's like, what? I'm not going to. I'm just trying to find my sister, and then we're going to help out, figure out what's going on. He's like, okay. The fact is that speaks volumes that he immediately was like, oh, you're going to vanquish me. It's like, the only people they vanquish are like killer monsters and demons. Like, the fact is, I think that speaks, like, yo, their reputation is in the tank. I don't know if that's a byproduct of all the killing that Maggie's done. It's mainly been demons that they've attacked, so that's what makes it so interesting. But once again, I'll get to it when we get to it, but I think that's such a powerful thing. But that's super messed up. He went kind of, the Tallyman kind of goes dark side. It kind of goes a little poison ivy this episode, which obviously, well, using this poisoning this plant and making it attack everybody and like poisoning them. Luckily, Kayla shows up when she does, helping Maggie with a spell by manifesting these bath bombs and using an incantation to cure everything around. So it all works out in the end. But at the same time, Mel went inside of the Tallyman's memories, and it's supposed to take you that trip down memory lane thing is supposed to take you to a good memory like it did with Maggie. And I love that Maggie was like, yeah, this is a memory from back before things got, it's like from 4 years ago, before all this witch stuff. And I love that they had this heart to heart, and then it's like, yeah, there was a murder. It's like, wait, there was a murder and you didn't lead with that? It's like, sorry, we were just having such a nice moment, I didn't want to ruin it. I thought that was so sweet. But I thought it was so interesting. That's like, yeah, that was life before it got complicated. Because I even love Maggie saying that, right, that was back when we thought like these other issues we had in our lives were so big, and they seemed so mild and tame in comparison to what we're dealing with now. And at the end of the day, Maggie admits that she's not okay. She's like, I abused my powers. I hurt someone. I beat up someone. She's like, I felt when his nose broke and the sounds he made. Now I'm going to have to go to court in like a week. And she's like, because by talking about it, it made me feel like it made it that much more real. And so she just didn't want to talk about it. It was almost just like, right, out of sight, out of mind. As long as I don't talk about it, it's not real. What I'm going through didn't happen. What I didn't happen. But it was her just trying to escape from the problem. So I'm curious to really dive into like where Maggie's arc takes her, because she does say that she goes to therapy, but I think she's going to need help in a different way to process it. Because I think because I don't know if they don't go to a magical therapist. Because I think don't they go to a therapist and end up wiping her memories? I think wasn't that the whole thing like last season or season 2 or something like that, where Maggie opened up to a therapist and then like they had to wipe her memory. No, because I think Mel froze time or something at one point in time and interrupted her therapy or something like that. I think she might need a different therapist to really unload everything that she's dealing with, because there's only so much you can really cover. It's being so heartbroken and that you needing an outlet for that anger. Both of them needed a different outlet for that anger, and need to have an outlet in a more healthy way to process and deal with everything that they've gone through. So, but regardless, circling back to it, Mel went inside of the Tallyman's memory, which is supposed to be a happy memory, but it was a memory of his brother, because we find out what he is. He's a gremlin, but it seems like he doesn't have powers. So that's what I was kind of getting to. Like, it seemed interesting, like, the whole spider thing. That's why I was like, is that, like, some kind of thing, or is that a power, an ability? It seems like those are probably, like, magical items that he made. So he's kind of a tinkerer of sorts. So because he doesn't have magic, he creates essentially magical items through kind of, because gremlins are supposed to basically make machinery listen to them. And his brother was trying to make a point of like, right, all you have to do is believe in yourself. So it's like, cool, stick your hand in here and the machine cuts off before it messes up your hand. The Tallyman does it, but it crushes up his hands from what we can hear, which Mel's like, is this supposed to be a happy memory? She's like, oh, maybe he's a bit of a sociopath. But the reason why it's a happy memory for him, because Mel didn't deep dive into the whole thing, but it could be that was the beginning of what made him who he is. So that's why in a twisted way, he's like, oh, I look back on that memory. You know what I mean? Maybe, who knows, for afterwards, his brother was like, oh, such a disappointment. It's like, maybe he killed his brother afterwards, and there's a psychotic part of him that's like, oh yeah, that's a happy memory. I don't know why, but I'm getting some like magical Joker vibes in my head or something like about from this guy. We'll see, but I'm curious where his story takes him. The fact is, why he is the way he is, why he wants to disrupt the magical world so much, and now I think I know why. It seems like because he is someone that is a part of the magical world, but was an outsider amongst it. So I think he wants to make the magical world pay for what they're doing. But also it seems like he's specifically targeting the Charmed Ones, because I think he's trying to prove himself. It's like, if I can tackle and take down the Charmed Ones, then at the end of the day, I can prove myself. Like, I think he's that little kid that felt powerless when he was younger. The actor who plays the younger version of him, I'm like, that actor seems so familiar. I don't know where I know him from. Who played the younger Tallyman in that memory. But I think that he's trying to prove himself. And how do you prove yourself? Take down the biggest power in the magical world, that being the Charmed Ones. That's what I'm assuming. So we'll have to wait and see. But like I said, I love the development of, we are dealing with magical fake news. I'm curious how people feel about that, but it's like, yeah, he's putting out propaganda being like, oh my god, the Charmed Ones, they're so terrible. He's purposely editing things to make it, oh my god, they killed that Lamia. It's like, yeah, he's recording every aspect of everything. And, you know, especially because Dev was just like, oh, did you know when you met someone who's like kind of everything but nothing, but also just everything all at once? He's smitten with Kayla, but then he sees that video, and I don't know if he's like, oh, I thought she was cool. I guess she's not that great of a person. Finding out she's mixed up in all this. But once again, what did I say before? The fact is that some bad rumors have started spreading around about Kayla herself, about what and who she is. And then on top of that, you add in the fact is that what was Arnold's first reaction? Please don't vanquish me. You're not even a demon, you're a merman. So why would they do that? So I was like, the rumors are spreading that the Charmed Ones are wild. Once again, I don't know if that's directly connected to Maggie's situation, which maybe Maggie's stuff is what's going to be the linchpin to his plan of like, oh, she's been wilding, she's been out there killing demons and being very active, and now everyone's kind of terrified of the Charmed Ones, and now people are debating like, oh, maybe someone doctored the footage, and the guy's like, are you crazy? Why are you taking up a bat for the Charmed Ones? The Charmed Ones only care if you're a witch. And so I think we're getting into a lane that I think is so fascinating. This is a plot point in the original series as well, of basically the entire magical world turning against the Charmed Ones, because it's like, right, you're kind of jeering your responsibilities. To be fair, no one gave them any opportunity, because it's like, right, they're dealing with stuff in their own regards, and obviously they had their complications with the magical world, but it's like, right, while this stuff was happening, you weren't there for us, so the entire magical world turned on them. I think we're getting a little bit of that with the Tallyman at the heart of it. You know, I never even thought about it at the time that Kaylee Cuoco's character from the original series, I'm blanking on it. I'm going to have to look that up. Billy, which apparently Billy had telekinesis, and I'm like, oh, I never put that together, because I don't actively, like, I didn't, because when you think about the Charmed Ones, you just think about the Charmed Ones, I completely forget about the Billy element to it, because that's like one of the earliest things I ever got familiar with Kaylee Cuoco from. Like, other than that, like, Eight Simple Rules to Dating My Daughter is like the first thing, and then I saw her on Charmed afterwards. So, like, those are the first two projects I became familiar with her through. So, I completely forgot about that. And so, it's like, right, Kayla almost plays like a Billy role, too. Once again, she plays kind of a Paige role as well, but still. But, like, the whole male, Macy having telekinesis, I never put that together because I never actively thought about the angle of like, right, I forgot about. To be fair, Billy didn't get introduced until like, I think it was like the final season is when Billy got introduced. So, oh no, it was looking at it. It was definitely the final season she got introduced. Once again, tensions and all that aside, I'm fascinated to see how this all plays out, but we also got other elements of Mel and, you know, Maggie and Kayla planning on getting away, like a non-magical vacation. And then you get on top of that, they're, you know, dealing with everything between themselves. Kayla feeling like, oh, I kind of screwed up, so I'm not good at this active witch duty. But it's like, no, we stumbled early days with this charm stuff too. It's like, of course you're not going to jump on it and get it all immediately. So it's like, we're in this together. We got each other's back. But now, because of what the magical world is saying too, Kayla's like, right, I was kind of saying initially I had no interest in looking into my biological parents, but maybe I might need to. And even saying that, sadly, us looking into it might unveil some nasty family secrets, which is like, they've already been down that road before, so what are the surprises? I mean, maybe it might be some nastier surprises they weren't expecting, but we'll have to wait and see. On that front, we also have the situation with Mel, where she learns, like, she tried to make that clock stop, and she thought, oh, I incinerated it. It pops back up at a different time, and it's like, wait, I sent it through time. I was like, okay, so you do have your time travel, you have your time ability, but instead of just stopping time, you can move time forward and backwards. Because this is what I was kind of getting to last episode, because she said it wasn't just her reliving those memories of her and Ruby. What she remembered, it felt like she was there. I think she time traveled her own consciousness there. You know, the example I used was a TV show on Netflix called Travelers. I've used that example for how they do time travel. So I was thinking she kind of did that, but rather than taking over herself, she just transferred her consciousness there to be in that moment without actively doing anything. So there are layers to this time ability of her. So I'm curious, can she still stop? Will she be able to still stop time, or is that base ability going and it's just manifested in I can now move things and maybe people throughout time, which obviously time travel, she's already kind of dealt with that with the whole, oh yeah, future her coming back to the past and be like, yo, take care of the future baby. So that having its own ripples and complications, but it's also like, you know, I'm sure there's going to be issues with that, like accidentally probably sending herself forward or backwards in time. What kind of issues that might create potentially. You could definitely see things kind of going wrong there. But like I said, I'm also curious, like, if she has the base stopping time. So, like, does she have will she have the ability to stop time still and move things back and forward, move things and maybe people through back and forth throughout time? Or is it just moving things forward and backwards in time that she has and no longer has a stopping ability? We'll ultimately have to wait and see. I'm very, very excited to find out. I'm so interested to see where ultimately all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.